Your life is not happening in a straight line. That's a trick of your brain's limited bandwidth, a coping mechanism for decoding a multidimensional universe into something linear. In truth, your past, present, and future are not arranged like beads on a string. They exist simultaneously, like frequencies on a cosmic radio dial, and the you that you become is determined not by chance or fate, but by the frequency you're tuned into right now. Quantum physics, in its most mysterious and disruptive revelations, has shown us something so paradigm-breaking that most minds instinctively reject it. The future is not a destination waiting to unfold, but a set of infinite probabilities existing right now, in this moment, in what physicists call the quantum field of potential. And you're not walking through time, you're collapsing it. But here's the part that few understand. The field does not respond to time. It responds to attention, it responds to coherence, it responds to the quality of the observer. This is not spiritual poetry, it's quantum mechanics. Let's pull back the curtain. In the infamous double-slit experiment, particles behaved like waves, existing in a state of probability until an observer measured them. In the moment they were observed, they chose a specific path and became particles. This has been called the observer effect, but it's not just a quirky lab result. It's the key to your timeline. If a particle, the most fundamental unit of matter, only becomes real when it's observed, then the universe itself requires you to watch in order to manifest. But what are you watching for? That's the real question. The mistake most people make is believing their observation begins with their eyes. It doesn't. It begins with their beliefs, their emotions, their expectations. You are not observing neutrally. You're observing energetically. That's why two people in the same room, with the same opportunities, can live radically different lives. They're collapsing different realities, not because one is luckier, but because one is more coherent. Your beliefs are the lens. Your emotions are the signal strength. Your nervous system is the antenna. And yet, most people don't realize this. They continue to wait for a future that is already available, like someone standing in front of a locked door, never realizing the key is already in their pocket. Let's go deeper. In quantum field theory, all possible states exist in a superposition. That means your future self already exists in multiple forms. One version of you is healthy and confident. Another is wealthy and fulfilled. Another is still stuck in cycles of fear. All of them are real in the field, but only one will become real in your experience. Why? Because that's the version you continuously observe through your self-concept, your vibration, and your embodied expectations. This is the illusion. You think you're heading toward that future, but actually you're tuning into it. So here's the paradox. To become your future self, you must stop chasing them. You must match them emotionally, neurologically, vibrationally, as if you were already them. The timeline is not ahead of you, it's beside you. And the only thing preventing you from shifting into it is coherence. Now pause. This might challenge every belief you've had about growth, destiny, and personal development. And that's the point. We were taught that time flows like a river, and we are its passive passengers. But quantum physics, and the mystical traditions that knew this long before science caught up, show us that time behaves more like an ocean. Every version of you exists simultaneously, like islands scattered across the waters of potential. You don't move through time, you navigate consciousness. And this navigation begins, not with force, but with frequency. There's something even stranger. The field doesn't recognize effort, it recognizes resonance. You may work hard, take action, visualize endlessly. But if your vibration is still tuned to doubt, lack, or unworthiness, the only reality that can collapse for you is the one that matches that signature. Let that sink in. You do not receive the future you want. You receive the future you're vibrationally equal to. Now ask yourself, what version of your future self are you currently observing without even realizing it? The one who keeps surviving or the one who finally thrives? The one who doubts or the one who leads? The field is neutral. It doesn't care what you want. It reflects what you are. But how do you shift? What's the mechanism for collapsing a different version of your future self? One that is already present in the field but hidden from your current reality. That's the puzzle. And the answer begins in a place you might not expect. It begins in the silent architecture of your nervous system, in the electric hum of your heart's coherence, and in the soft but powerful alignment of belief, body, and breath. You see, the future isn't hiding from you. You're hiding from it. By anchoring your energy to the wrong timeline over and over, through repetition of thought, emotion, and identity. But something changes when you stop observing from fear and start observing from embodiment. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the secret relationship between you and the version of yourself that already lives the life you think you're trying to create, and why that version might be trying to reach you just as much as you've been reaching for it. But before we open that door, ask yourself, not what's next, but who is watching through your eyes right now? Because your future is not waiting. It's observing. There's a reason you sometimes feel like something is guiding you, like there's a version of you somewhere just beyond the veil, whispering instructions through dreams, déjà vu, or an unshakable intuition. Maybe you call it your higher self. Maybe you've written it off as coincidence. But what if it's neither? What if science is finally catching up with something ancient? Mystics and visionaries have always hinted at that your future self is not just a possibility, but a presence. To understand this, we need to step into one of the most mind-bending revelations in quantum physics, entanglement. At its core, quantum entanglement describes the phenomenon where two particles, once connected, remain bonded across time and space. Change the state of one dire, and the other responds instantly, even if they're separated by galaxies. Einstein famously called it spooky action at a distance. But it's not spooky. It's fundamental. And it doesn't just apply to particles. It applies to you. Your future self and your present self are entangled. They are not separate entities. They are two expressions of the same consciousness, vibrating at different frequencies, observing from different points along the same non-linear continuum. The electromagnetic imprint of your future identity is already present in the field, and it's sending signals right now through dreams, synchronicities, inner knowings that feel irrational but real. But here's the catch. You can only decode those signals when you enter resonance. When you're stuck in stress, survival, fear, or doubt, your body is vibrating in incoherence. In that state, you can't perceive higher frequencies. It's like trying to hear a symphony while standing in front of a roaring jet engine. The signal is there, clear, specific, benevolent. But your system isn't quiet enough to receive it. And yet, even then, your future self is still trying. That whisper you ignored, that path you almost took, that moment when something told you to turn left and you didn't, those were not random. They were messages, echoes, feedback from a version of you who already knows the way, because they've walked it. And the strange truth is, as much as you're trying to become them, they're watching you too. Entanglement isn't limited by time. This is where it gets deeply mystical and yet firmly grounded in physics. Time, as we perceive it, is a local illusion, a perceptual effect of how consciousness interacts with matter. But at the quantum level, cause and effect can reverse. A choice made now can influence a state that existed before. This is known as retrocausality, and it shatters everything we think we know about linear progress. It means your present self can be influenced by a future decision, especially when that decision carries emotional intensity, coherence, and clarity. And so we arrive at a truth that many resist because it requires radical responsibility. Your future self is already reaching back to shape you, but only if you allow it. Pause here. Breathe. Can you feel the implications of this? You're not alone on your path. You're not guessing in the dark. You are receiving daily, moment by moment, vibrational instructions from a future you who already remembers how you got there. The question is, are you quiet enough to hear them? Let's bring this down from the abstract and into the body. There's a concept in neuroscience called neural mirroring, the ability of the brain to simulate the experiences of others simply by observing. It's how we feel pain when someone else is hurt, or excitement when someone succeeds. But what if the most powerful mirror is not someone else, but a future you? When you begin to simulate the thoughts, feelings, and posture of the person you wish to become, you're not faking it. You're syncing. You're creating a biofeedback loop between timelines, opening a vibrational channel that allows insights, instructions, and upgrades to pass through. This is why visualization works, not because it tricks the universe, but because it entrains your nervous system to the identity of the future you. It sharpens the signal between timelines. But here's the mistake most people make. They try to force the future to arrive instead of learning to collaborate with it. Force operates from separation. Collaboration operates from entanglement. This is not about becoming something new. It's about remembering something ancient, that the field of infinite potentials is not outside of you. It's entangled with you. And so is every version of your future self. The one who's healed. The one who's loved. The one who leads. The one who's finally free. And here's where it gets even more profound. When you begin to respond to life from that frequency, instead of reacting from old wounds, the entanglement strengthens. The bond becomes conscious. You feel guided. You feel supported. And even though the external circumstances might not shift overnight, your internal compass stops spinning. You know the path. You can feel it under your feet. And that's when the synchronicities begin. You'll meet someone random who knows exactly what you need. You'll stumble upon a book, a video, a message that feels like it was meant for you. You'll find yourself taking actions that feel natural but bold. These are not accidents. They are confirmation. Your future self is responding to your coherence. But what happens when you slip back into doubt? What happens when you collapse back into the version of you that can't hear, can't trust, can't receive? That's part of it too. Entanglement doesn't break. It waits. Your future self is not judging. They're simply resonating at a frequency that's always available, waiting for you to remember the code. And what is that code? It's presence, it's coherence, it's alignment. When you embody that, not as a performance but as a felt state, you unlock the quantum mirror. And once that mirror is open, the entire timeline becomes a conversation between now and next. In the next chapter, we'll explore exactly how that conversation becomes reality, and why your emotions are not just chemical responses, but the tuning forks that collapse one future over another, because you are not chasing your destiny. You're collapsing it, one vibrational choice at a time. They told you reality is solid, that life unfolds in straight lines, that what you see is what is, and anything beyond that is imagination. But they never explained how your imagination sometimes becomes real. They never told you that your thoughts, invisible, fleeting, untouchable, might be the most powerful force shaping the world around you. Not metaphorically, literally. The truth is this: you are not a static observer of a fixed universe. You are the wave, and coherence is how you collapse it. Let's return, for a moment, to the most famous experiment in quantum physics, the double-slit experiment. Particles fired at a screen behaved like waves, spreading into infinite possibilities, until they were observed. The moment they were observed, they behaved like particles. They chose a single outcome. The wave collapsed into form. Now replace the particle with your life. You are the observer, yes, but you are also the wave. Every day, your energy exists in a state of potential, infinite versions of how today could unfold, infinite futures, infinite outcomes, and in every breath, with every thought, with every emotional reaction or intentional feeling, you collapse one of those waves into a lived experience, not through logic, not through force, through coherence. What is coherence? In physics, it's the synchronized alignment of waveforms. In the human body, it's the harmony between brain and heart. In the quantum field, it's a signal, clean, ordered, amplified. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are in resonance, they send a clear instruction to the field, and the field responds instantly and precisely. This is why your mind can want one thing, but your life reflects another. Because your vibration, not your desire, is the true instruction. Let that settle. You can say you want abundance. You can meditate on freedom. You can visualize your dream partner, dream business, dream life. But if your body is still anchored in fear, in self-doubt, in emotional chaos, the wave won't collapse the way you intend. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. Now, here's the twist. Most people try to become coherent after the result shows up. They say, I'll feel peaceful when I have financial security. I'll feel love when I'm in the right relationship. I'll feel powerful when my goals are achieved. But the field doesn't work like that. It doesn't wait for external proof to activate internal states. It listens for internal coherence first, and then it arranges the external accordingly. The vibration precedes the manifestation. The field is not reacting to matter. It's responding to frequency. So what happens when you finally choose coherence? Not as a momentary meditation, but as a way of being. You become a magnet for a new timeline. Let's be clear. Coherence is not pretending to be calm. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's not suppressing pain. It's alignment. It's when the story in your head, the emotion in your chest, and the behavior of your body are all saying the same thing. That's when the wave responds. That's when reality bends. Let's visualize this. Imagine your consciousness as a lighthouse. If the lens is foggy, distorted by fear, self-sabotage, trauma, the light scatters. It reaches few shores. But when the lens is clear, when your emotions, thoughts, and actions are aligned, the light becomes a laser. And that laser doesn't just illuminate your path, it shapes it. This is why people speak of flow states, of things clicking, of doors opening effortlessly. It's not magic. It's resonance. But coherence must be cultivated. It doesn't arrive by accident. It's built through discipline of thought, emotional regulation, and deep presence. It's built through embodied choice, moment after moment, to stay aligned with the version of you who already lives the future you desire. This is the practical side of the mystical. The field is intelligent, yes, but it's also mechanical. Just like a tuning fork causes another fork to vibrate at the same pitch, your coherence causes matching timelines to vibrate in response. They move toward you because, vibrationally, you are already there. And yet, the moment you collapse back into incoherence and into fear, judgment, self-rejection, the signal distorts. The wave collapses, but not into the timeline you hoped for. Here's the brutal beauty of quantum creation. You're always collapsing something. You can't not create. The question is, are you collapsing by default or by design? Let's take it even deeper. According to Dr. Joe Dispenza, when the brain and heart enter coherence, they create an electromagnetic signature measurable up to several feet outside the body. This signature influences matter. It communicates with the field. And it's unique to the emotional state you're holding. Gratitude sends one signal. Shame sends another. Presence is one frequency. Panic is another. The wave collapses accordingly. Now, consider this. Every moment you spend in coherent gratitude, not for what you have, but for what you are becoming, you are sending a magnetic imprint into the field. You're telling reality, this is the frequency. Match it. And the field obeys. Not because you forced it, but because it has no choice. But coherence is fragile in a world addicted to noise. Every scroll, every comparison, every distraction pulls you out of waveform potential and back into fragmented observation. The key is not to escape the world, but to enter it vibrationally immune. To stay in coherence, even when chaos surrounds you, is to claim your role as creator. Now here's where the curiosity loop deepens. What if you could live in that coherence? What if, instead of moments of aligned meditation, you trained your nervous system to make coherence your baseline? What if your default was already the frequency of your future self? That changes everything. Because the more sustained your coherence, the faster the wave collapses, and the more consistent the outcomes become. You stop living reactively and start living holographically. In the next chapter, we'll explore the mechanics of this shift, not in theory but in practice. You'll learn the shortcut. If you understand how to tune into your future not by striving, but by remembering, and why the future doesn't respond to effort, but to familiarity. Because when you remember your future, it starts remembering you. You've been taught that transformation requires struggle, that to become someone new, you must push harder, try more, work longer. But what if the opposite were true? What if the most profound shift of your life wasn't born from effort, but from remembrance? There is a version of you, fully alive, fully expressed, already free, that isn't waiting to be created, but simply to be remembered. The field doesn't need convincing, it needs coherence, and coherence doesn't require force, it requires frequency. This is the shortcut almost no one talks about, not because it's hidden, but because it's too simple for the mind addicted to effort. Let's rewire the paradigm. Imagine that reality is a multiverse of stations, like radio frequencies playing infinite versions of you. One station broadcasts the version of you stuck in cycles of doubt, another the version thriving in purpose, another the one who finally feels safe in their own skin. All of these stations exist now, simultaneously, eternally. The dial, that's your state of being. But here's the illusion. You think you have to build that version. You think you have to earn it. And so you chase, strive, hustle. You work on yourself endlessly, never realizing the signal is already there. It's just your nervous system that hasn't tuned in. This is where the science gets spiritual. Your nervous system is a frequency detection system. It memorizes emotional states and builds biochemical loops around them. Most people unknowingly become addicted to the frequency of survival, meaning even when life is calm, their body searches for chaos. Familiarity becomes identity, not because they love pain, but because the pain is known. It's safe. So to shift timelines, you must teach the body a new memory, and that memory must come before the evidence. Let's get precise. When you feel the emotion of your future and before it arrives, you create what neuroscientists call a somatic marker. This marker becomes a reference point. It says to your subconscious, this is real, not someday, now. The body, which doesn't know the difference between imagined and actual experience, begins to adapt. It fires new neural patterns. It releases new hormones. It shifts posture, breath, tone of voice. In short, it becomes the future version of you before your reality does. This is the vibrational technology of the mystics, now validated by brain scans and heart coherence monitors. It's not wishful thinking, it's quantum entrainment. But here's the key most people miss. The body will resist this shift, not because it's broken, but because it's loyal. It's trying to protect you by repeating what's known. That's why the shortcut is not found in forcing change, but in training familiarity. This is the frequency shortcut. You don't become your future self through effort. You become them by making their frequency feel familiar. So how do you do it? You begin by shifting your energetic default. You train your nervous system through repetition and emotion to recognize the state of your future self as safe, as normal, as already here. This is the art of collapsing resistance before results, and it happens through a ritual of remembered embodiment. Here's a simple practice. Use it daily, especially when old patterns arise. The timeline encoding ritual. Close your eyes and take 3 slow, deep breaths. Recall a moment from your imagined future, a scene where you're fully in your power, your peace, your purpose. Feel it in detail. How does your body move? What's the posture? What thoughts are playing in your mind? What's the expression on your face? Now, amplify the emotion. Let your heart lead. Let gratitude swell as if this reality is already done, because in the field, it is. Hold that frequency for 90 seconds. That's enough to imprint a new signal into the field. Then open your eyes and act from it. Not just when it's easy, especially when it's not, because the brain wires according to action. Each time you take a small step from the energy of your future instead of the fear of your past, you rewrite the code of your identity. And this identity, it's the access point. It's the real manifestation technique, not words, not vision boards, embodied identity. And here's the magic. The more often you repeat this, the less resistance you feel. Your body begins to crave the new frequency. Your subconscious becomes fluent in possibility. And suddenly, life responds. Why? Because the field no longer sees you as someone wanting the future. It registers you as someone remembering it. That's when you enter quantum alignment. That's when time bends. That's when reality starts chasing you. Pause and feel this. You don't need to struggle to get there. You're already connected to the version of you who lives there. All that remains is tuning in, again, and again, and again. And if you've been feeling like change is close but not quite landing, this is likely why. The frequency is present, but not yet familiar. That changes today. So right now, take 20 seconds and anchor it. Type in the comments, "I remember my future as if it already happened." Let that be the signal to yourself, to the field, and to this community that your shift is active. We're not here to wish. We're here to align. Because your future isn't waiting for you to work harder. It's waiting for you to feel it, to know it, to become it, before it arrives. In the next chapter, we'll explore how this frequency creates a feedback loop with reality itself, and how your future identity, once activated, begins to pull you in through synchronicities, intuitive actions, and magnetic alignment. You'll see how what you receive is just an echo of who you've decided to be. There's a moment, subtle, but unmistakable, when reality begins to echo back who you've become. A stranger uses the same phrase you whispered in meditation. An opportunity arrives in perfect alignment with your vision. A song plays with the exact emotion you just encoded into your heart. And you realize like the field is not random, it's responsive, it's alive. This is the point where the quantum shift gets real. Not as a concept, but as a conversation. You've moved beyond desire, beyond chasing. You've entered the feedback loop of creation. Most people don't realize this exists. They think life is one-directional. I act, and results follow. But that's not how quantum systems operate. In a classical world, cause precedes effect. In a quantum world, the lines blur. The future can affect the present. And once you learn to recognize its signature, you'll never unsee it again. Let's break this open with science. In John Wheeler's delayed choice experiment, particles behave as if they know they're going to be observed, even before the observation happens. This suggests a form of retrocausality. The future decision affects the present outcome. It defies linear time, but it aligns perfectly with the quantum model, where consciousness is primary and time is not fixed. So, what does this mean for you? It means the version of your future self you choose to embody today begins shaping your environment before any external action. It means who you become doesn't just change your internal state, it changes the timeline you attract and the feedback you receive from the field. Let's simplify. Your frequency doesn't just broadcast, it attracts, it instructs, it mirrors. This is why certain patterns seem to loop in your life. Not because the universe is testing you, but because you haven't changed the signal you're sending. The field, ever responsive, ever neutral, keeps reflecting back the identity you're holding. And until that identity shifts, the feedback won't either. But here's the twist. Once you shift the frequency long enough to sustain coherence, something radical happens. Reality stops reacting. It starts organizing around you. You become a mirror, not a passive reflector but an active transmitter. Your environment reorganizes itself to match your dominant vibration. People show up who match your clarity. Resources appear without hustle. Time bends. Synchronicities increase. This isn't luck, it's physics. And it's how quantum feedback operates. Let me tell you a story. A man had been visualizing financial abundance for months. He meditated, he journaled, he affirmed, but nothing shifted. One day, in deep meditation, he stopped trying to manifest money and started embodying the frequency of trust. Not for a result, but as a way of being. Within 48 hours, He received a phone call. An old client had referred him to someone who needed his service urgently and paid him in full, upfront, without negotiation. The man didn't create this through force. He simply became the vibrational match for an opportunity that already existed in the field. This is the loop. The more you act from the frequency of your future self, not toward it, the more your timeline accelerates. The feedback becomes clearer. The mirror becomes sharper. But there's a responsibility here, because the field mirrors your shadows too. When you act from scarcity, the field doesn't judge. It complies. When you vibrate in confusion, the field doesn't correct. It reflects. This is not punishment. It's precision. And once you accept this, you stop blaming the outside world for the reflection and start refining the source. You. This is where true quantum maturity begins. The mirror does not respond to declarations. It responds to embodiment. And embodiment is built through micro-decisions. The way you breathe when no one's watching. The thoughts you repeat when doubt creeps in. The identity you default to when old patterns tempt you back. Want a new reality? Then hold a new signal long enough to receive new feedback. And here's where it gets even more profound. When your internal state becomes immune to external conditions, when you no longer wait for reality to justify your vibration, but maintain it regardless, the loop reverses. You no longer react to life. Life reacts to you. The field, once chaotic, begins to organize itself in your favor. This is coherence in motion. You become the cause, not the effect. And this is not a metaphor. It's measurable. HeartMath Institute has shown that sustained heart coherence not only shifts personal physiology, but affects the electromagnetic environment around you. This means your coherence literally influences the collective field. You're not just creating for yourself. You're broadcasting into the quantum web. And what happens when enough people become mirrors? Reality shifts. This is the quantum revolution. Not a mass awakening by information, but by frequency entrainment. One embodied future self at a time. So let's bring it back to you. Right now, the version of you who already lives your next chapter, your healed chapter, your liberated chapter, your expansive chapter, is not only real, they are watching you, and they're sending you feedback. Through gut feelings, through signs, through the field. Your job is to trust it, to respond to it, to become coherent enough to hear it clearly. Because here's the truth most won't say. Your future self doesn't need you to figure it all out. They need you to feel the way they feel, right now. And when you do, they'll collapse toward you. With grace, with speed, with mirrored precision. In the final chapter, we'll bring everything together. You'll discover how to lock in your new timeline by collapsing your old identity, and why the version of you you've been chasing was simply waiting for you to choose. There comes a moment in every journey where seeking must give way to embodiment. You've visualized, you've felt, you've remembered the frequency of who you're becoming. But the final step is to collapse who you've been, not to kill the past, but to stop keeping it alive. You see, the quantum field doesn't need your effort. It needs your decision. Because every time you revisit the identity of limitation, through thoughts, habits, emotions, you're not just remembering, you're reactivating. You're recollapsing the same version of you over and over again. This is the final paradox. The old self is not holding on to you. You're holding on to it. And once you truly see that, with no shame, no judgment, just presence, the collapse begins. Let's bring this into the science. In quantum mechanics, collapse isn't destruction, it's selection. From infinite wave possibilities, one reality becomes manifest through observation and coherence. When you collapse a version of yourself, you're not erasing it. You're simply ceasing to energize it. You stop feeding that timeline with your focus. And in doing so, it dissolves, not with noise, but with silence. This is not about fixing yourself. It's about choosing again. And this choice isn't loud. It doesn't need fireworks. It's subtle, embodied, a breath held differently, a posture shifted, a boundary honored, a belief surrendered. It's the moment you stop needing proof. and become the proof. Because at a certain point, you realize your future doesn't arrive like a lightning strike. It unfolds like a memory you finally stopped resisting. It's not new. It's familiar. It's who you were always meant to be. Beneath the programming, the fear, the loop. This is the death of striving, the birth of alignment. So how do you stay in this space? How do you sustain this version of you when the old one whispers to be remembered? The key is not suppression, it's presence. You meet the old self like a ghost, not with fear, but with gratitude. You say, thank you, you protected me, but I'm not that anymore. And in that act of witnessing, the charge dissolves. The loop ends. Now, the field can reflect your coherence without distortion. Let's make it practical. Every morning, wake up and collapse the version of you that no longer serves. Don't wait for triggers. Don't wait for contrast. Proactively choose. Feel the version of you that already exists in the quantum, confident, joyful, magnetic, and breathe them into your cells. Let your nervous system memorize that future as now. Let your choices flow from that memory. This is how identity shifts, not in sudden revolutions, but in sustained embodiment. And here's the secret. Most miss. Identity is not who you think you are. It's who you feel safe being. So if your body still feels safe in contraction, you'll keep returning there no matter how much you affirm. That's why this path is not mindset alone. It's cellular, energetic, ritualistic. And every time you choose from this place, the field listens. You become the tuning fork, the attractor, the timeline, and others feel it. Without you needing to convince, to prove, or to explain, your presence speaks. And when your presence carries the frequency of your future self, it sends a message into the collective. It's possible. This is how quantum identity becomes not just personal, but communal. And this is where the movement begins. Because as more of us collapse the outdated versions of who we thought we had to be, and step into the coherent frequency of who we truly are, we entrain the field together. We shift the collective mirror, and the ripple expands. You don't need a perfect past to embody a powerful future. You just need presence, and the courage to no longer delay who you've already become. So ask yourself, quietly, honestly, what version of me am I willing to let go of, so I can finally remember who I am? Let this not be the end of the video, but the beginning of your embodiment. And if you feel the pull to go deeper, not just in theory, but through practice, there's something waiting for you. Inside the Awaken Your Quantum Power ebook, you'll find the next layer. Not more information, but activation. It's a companion designed to move these teachings from concept into embodiment, with daily tools, rituals, and guided practices to collapse the old self and anchor the new frequency with clarity. The link is in the pinned comment. If you feel it's aligned, it's yours to explore. Because your quantum identity isn't coming. It's already here, awaiting to be chosen. So choose, collapse, and become.